Hey guys, before we get started, we want to tell you about our champion partners, including our Hall of Fame partners, Gregg Vet Clinic, Hicks Chicks, Cyber Technologies, Kenny Chesney's Blue Chair Bay Rum, J&J Flooring and Natural Stone, Concordia Bank and Trust, and GoMart. So go visit all of our champion partners that you see on the screen right now. Make sure to do business with them and tell them Miss Lou Champion sent you. Enjoy the show. Guys, Ronnie Calhoun here with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight. We got my buddy Joey Martin in the studio today. How are you?
I'm good, Ronnie. Thanks for having me, brother.
Oh man, I've been wanting to get you in for a long time. I think this is going to be an interesting episode.
Absolutely, I hope so.
I know several people who have mentioned your name to me, and I know a lot of people out there are going to be interested.
Well, I appreciate it.
To hear your story and hear some of the stories.
Always love talking with you. You know that.
Oh, I know it. So Joey is the sports editor and the news writer for Concordia Sentinel.
Correct.
And the Sentinel has been great to me. Whenever I was when I first moved back, I'm interviewing you now. But,
right.
you were interviewing me because of some of the things that we were doing in music with Tiger Stadium and all of that stuff.
And fun stuff.
And I always appreciated that. It was really great that you reached out and showed us support.
Those are fun stories, and people loved them.
Yeah, and we really appreciated it. But you know what? And I always appreciated that. But I also really appreciated whenever I taught, and our kids would do something, you would always be glad to shout them out and all that. And they always love seeing their picture in the paper. I guess we all do.
That's what it's all about.
That's right, man. So you guys have been great for the community, and you have been great for the community for a long time. So he's definitely a champion. Definitely fits the champion mold. So let's talk a little bit about where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school and all that good stuff?
Okay, start at the beginning, like you said.
Yeah.
No man on the street question, though, right?
No, I don't have any hard questions for you today.
All right, we're good then.
That's right.
Well, I tell you, and I was a little worried about this at first. I had allergies hit me harder than a Dallas Cowboy kicker. Man, I said, oh, man. But I was worried I looked like Rod Tidwell talking to Roy Firestone and Jerry Maguire. But Dr. Chuck took care of me.
Oh, good deal.
But when I was a junior at Cathedral in 1973,
okay,
they decided to start up the school newspaper again, The Wave. And so I asked people interested. Everybody knew I loved sports. Everybody knew I liked to write as well. So kind of got into that. Sister Mary Junkin was who later became principal. She was over the paper. I know that sounds like a Cheech and Chong joke, right? But so she asked me to do sports. I said, sure. I went with that. My first ever feature, Ken Beasley, who was the baseball coach and football coach, taught math there. Yep. Did a feature on him on his baseball playing days at Natchez Adams High and at Mississippi State. So that was a lot of fun.
And this is whenever you were a junior in high school?
I was a junior in high school. It would have been like 73, 74.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of ironic. You know, Hall of Fame coach Ken Beasley.
Yeah, hell yeah. I
played ninth grade basketball, and I only played my senior year baseball. Coach Beasley was the coach, both of them. We went 0-9 in basketball. Got beat by Morgantown 103-37.
Oh, Lord.
My dad tells me they stopped the clock at the end. But I'm not bitter. It's fine. And we went 0-10 in baseball. I mean, many times, Ken Beasley not have a winless season. Yeah. But we might have won a game, except I dropped a pop-up at third base, North Pike. But anyway, so I don't know who was happier to see me graduate, my parents or Ken Beasley. So anyway, so that was a good time there. And,
that's funny.
But, of course, his son, Craig, and Ken, I followed both of them in sports.
Yeah.
Craig was amazing on the mound. And one game, Dexter, they were playing Dexter, which was a big rival back then, and Craig had a gold chain on. Of course, middle of the game, Craig's just shutting them down.
Uh-huh.
They say, well, we need him to take his chain off. And I'm like, oh, come on, guys. So I wrote a story the next day. They should have just put kryptonite around the mound. It might have worked better,
They started hitting him after that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it didn't make any difference.
So I was going to ask you what got you into journalism, but it sounds like that was sort of your first experience in journalism? And
well, we had the paper printed at the Democrat.
Okay.
And the guy, Bruce Morton, was the press foreman then, and he wrote a nice letter, said he enjoyed my story, and it kind of got me into the door there. Bob Johnson was the first of many, many sports editors at the Democrat, and he was my first, and he was a great guy, really good. And there have been some characters. You talked about characters earlier. Yeah. There have been some characters for sports editors there. You had Steve Hillen rode a unicycle around town all the time. That's great. Johnny Martin. Everybody kept saying, "You can now." That's my brother's name. No, we're not kidding. Mm-hmm. He couldn't drive. So, and then you had Bob Morgan, and his brother Jim was a news editor. Back in the 80s, the Democrat was getting bomb threats, calls in, and so one night, Friday night, when there'd be about 5 of us go out, you know, back then you had Thomas Jefferson, Trinity, South Natchez, North Natchez, Cathedral, ACCS, Bedelia, Huntington, Verity, and then not including the Centervilles and the blocks. And
so you had a lot of ground to cover.
Ooh, absolutely. And we covered all of them, Port Gibson, Chamberlain Hut. So Bob gets the idea. Bill had left early for lunch. He gets his watch and he sets the alarm on it. And he pulled up his keyboard and set it under it to go off about 10:30, put it back together. So Bill's just pecking away there, getting into it, and all of a sudden, beep, 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 beep. He about fell out of that chair going backwards. So, yeah, there was a lot of characters there. But
so you started at the Democrat?
Started the Democrat.
Okay, and what year was that?
That was in 73. I was actually just a correspondent. I worked Woods Auto.
Okay.
Full time. So it was kind of like I'd get off work at Woods, go to work at the Democrat. But, you know, it got me trained properly. I'll say that. Okay. But there was a lot of good people.
When did you become? When did you start becoming full time in the?
It was about 85 when things were kind of slowing down at Woods, and Kate McGandy was the sports editor then. And I talked then and came on full time then, and just really had a great time with that.
And you've been rocking and rolling ever
since. Okay. I can give you some good. I mentioned Ken Beasley. I'll tell you one story. One year they played Stringer. That was another big rivalry. It was every year the playoffs, Cathedral Stringer. And so one year I went over to Stringer for the playoff game, and I was sitting there watching, and Ken Beasley's wife, Sue Beasley, she would be moving around with every inning. It's like, hey, I can change our luck by doing this. She actually sat on top of the hill. Then she went on the bus. She went somewhere else. So the next day I wrote a column. I said, well, if you were wondering how the game was going, just take a look at Sue. So she calls me up the next day. Hey, that was a great column, but I told my boss that I was sick. I don't think he bought that for a minute anyway.
That's funny right there.
But yeah, it's been the Bees are such great people. And you know, all the people there, all the great coaches, that's a big part of it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to get into some of those here in a few minutes. I want to hear. I know everybody's interested to hear some of those.
Well, my first game I ever covered at the Democrat, that was in 74. I was a junior. I didn't have a car then.
Okay.
So he told me to go to the Huntington game. Okay, I'll have to get a ride. I called Gregg Fondren. Gregg had just transferred from South Natchez to Huntington. You know, transfer portal was working back then. And,
did he get an NIL too?
So I said, Gregg, anyway, I can get a ride to the game. Huntington played their games on Lake Concordia. That's where their stadium was back then.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, I had no idea. Where was this at?
Beautiful.
Where was?
You go, and you can just see, it's kind of grown over now, but when you go right up the first exit and go up on the hill, it was right down there. And you talk about the bugs being, you can imagine.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Huntington won that first game, and Gregg was mentioned twice in the article, but he was good. He deserved it. He brought me back. I walked down to my grandmother's on Wall Street, but yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That's funny, man. That's crazy. Now that I'm just going back to what you said a while ago. You're talking about right there by the RV where the old KOA was.
Close to that, yeah. And they actually had a Trinity had a jamboree. Bobby Marks was the coach.
Okay.
And they had Tinsall, Trinity, and it was just cars down the highway. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
But yeah, it was quite a setting.
So before we get into some of the stories and stuff like that, so how long have you been at the Sentinel now?
I started the Sentinel in 2000.
Okay.
So this will be my 23rd year.
Okay. So overall, this is how many years for you in the sport in the news and sports world?
It's close to about 45, 46.
Okay. Wow. It's a good run.
Yeah.
Saying a lot.
So far.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's talk about let's kind of dive into some of the let's talk about some of the events that maybe you've covered over the years.
There's been a lot of great events. I mean, it was something going on all the time. Of course, we had Natchez Bicycle Classic. Man, that was fun.
Yeah.
Whizzing through these streets and just out at Kingston. And, of course, you had the Hooters and the T.C. Jordan golf tournament.
Okay.
And, nobody was going with Bellwood. They're just going to smoke that. But it was tougher than a lot of people thought. Yeah. And the balloon race, of course. But there was always something.
Yeah. What's it like covering all these different schools that you've covered over the years?
Oh, it's a blast.
Like one of the things that kind of I was curious about is some of the better teams around that you've covered and some of the championship teams and stuff like that.
When I started, we kind of said, well, you concentrate on this, you concentrate on that. And I was lucky enough to be able to concentrate on North Natchez.
Okay.
Some athletes.
Yeah.
And I always loved going there. Oscar Reed was the principal. Man, I'd sit down there for long time just talking to him. His son Lance Reed played at Natchez or South Natchez and went to Tech, and later became the head coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you had Tom Williams there, just great people there. Mary J. Irving, she was just priceless. Sam West, George Smith, and the athletes, like I say, good gracious. Hugh Green, James Berry, his son Eric Berry, just was named for the College Hall of Fame.
Was he recently?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. I met Mr. James, a couple years ago over at their place over here.
Right.
And I want to say he told me he played for the Cowboys, maybe, or something like that.
When he went to Tennessee,
hit the dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he went to Tennessee too.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And injured his knee.
Okay.
Otherwise, Ronnie, he would have been just bona fide superstar. I think he did try it, but his knee injury. And back then, you just didn't get over that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a lot different now.
Mm-hmm.
And then his son Eric. So his son Eric that played for Tennessee and then played for I believe the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
So he played here high school ball too.
He didn't. They moved to Georgia.
Okay. So the dad played at Natchez.
No, it's North Natchez. Yeah.
And then Hugh Green, who you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, he played for the Miami Dolphins. Is that correct?
That's correct. You know how he ended up in Pittsburgh.
No.
North Natchez was playing Pascagoula. So Pittsburgh, which Jackie Sherrill was there, wanted to come down and look at Rooster Jones, a running back for Pascagoula. Okay. Well, they're sitting there at the game. They're going, who is this guy making all these tackles? And that's how they got Hugh Green.
Wow, yeah.
And, when Keith Woodside was when he was heavily recruited, Jackie Sherrill was a coach at Texas A&M. And he knew that Keith, one of his favorite players was Tony Dorsett, who played for Jackie at Pittsburgh. So he got Dorsett to call Keith. And it was a done deal then.
Yeah.
Okay. He even wore his number, 33.
I never knew that.
Mm.
What years was Keith over at Vidalia? Was that?
That was in the early 80s.
Early 80s.
Boy, there were some great games there. He was fantastic, yeah.
That
was when Nathaniel Williams was at Faraday.
Okay.
So
what's his story?
He set the record for freshman touchdowns that Billy Cannon set his first year at Faraday. He ended up going to Tech, but
so is that a state record or?
It was, yeah. It's been broken.
Yeah. At the time, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Wow.
And the Faraday John Curtis game, 1981, the best game ever.
Really?
I didn't cover it. I went to it
Uh-huh.
because somebody else was covering it. It was huge, and it was people everywhere. And we had to end up sitting on the John Curtis side because there was nowhere.
Where was it located? Is this in the Dome?
It was at Faraday.
Is it at Faraday? Okay.
It was a semifinal game.
Okay.
And it was amazing to see the old man, John Curtis, walk that sideline in his trench coat, and they had more coaches than Faraday had players. And it was a great game. Came down to the end. It was 42-30, but it came down to the end.
Yeah.
And J.T. Curtis, which a lot of people don't like and a lot of coaches don't like, obviously, but one of the nicest guys I've ever talked to. I've called him about 4 times, and we've talked about that game several times.
Yeah.
He told me a story that he had to come. He and Jerry Baldwin, the Faraday coach, were going to meet at the Belmont Hotel in Baton Rouge to exchange film. So he's on the interstate, and his wife, he was going to drop her off at her sister's house. There's a wreck on the interstate. He gets hung up about 2 hours. Finally gets to Baton Rouge, and he says, I'll go by the Belmont, but there's no way this guy's going to still be there.
Yeah.
So he walks in, and he's asking, like, hey, is there some guy looking for me or that's been around? And the lady said, well, yeah, there was. He went over there. He said he'd be right back. And he came back, and JT told me, I knew right then this guy was serious about this game.
he wasn't going anywhere until he got that film.
John Curtis had Reggie Dupard, went to SMU, and I got a hold of him a couple of years ago to talk about that game. Reggie's a super guy. He said, oh, I'll never forget that game.
Really?
And they had a kid named Brian Stropolo running back, and he actually had some bigger gains than Reggie did. He ended up going to Nicholls State. But JT told me, he said, at the end of that game, some of the Faraday kids, we were in the gym dressing back to go back. Some of the Faraday kids, coach, we got to meet that number 20. And JT says, I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be good or not. But he got him, he brought him in there, and they all said, look, man, it was a lot of respect and admiration there, and it was really neat that came about then.
So you think that was one of the better games that you've
Absolutely.
seen? Wow.
And there's been some good ones.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about some of the I'm a Viking,
Mm-hmm.
I'm an old Viking, as Coach Fairclough would say. He's an old Viking. What a guy.
What a guy.
Tell me a little bit about what it was like to cover some of the Vidalia-Faraday rivalry over the years.
There's nothing like that. Yes, indeed. It was packed house, and game, I think it was 82. It was 80. No, I'm sorry, it was 84. Faraday and Vidalia were both unbeaten, and it was at Vidalia. And Faraday ended up winning it at the end. And Vidalia's best linebacker had lost his helmet, Joe Ray Hooker.
Okay.
And so he's looking around for it, and kid from Faraday broke a long run down the 1 yard line.
While he was looking for his helmet.
Yeah. So
he looked up. Where'd he go?
That's the year Faraday went to the Dome and played John Curtis. But I guarantee you, if Vidalia would have won that game and been the top seed, I believe they'd have made it to the Dome because they were just really that close together. It was a great. Of course, Vidalia South Natchez playing each other.
They had a good.
People all the way around. That was when Keith was playing.
Okay.
And I remember D walking up to the top of the stadium, and he goes, "They are still coming over that bridge."
So it was. I never knew that Vidalia and Natchez played each other.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And Vidalia actually beat South Natchez a couple of years later, which I want to get to that too.
Yeah.
But Fred Falkenhainer was going to try to help Vidalia get motivated. So he had a guy a pilot he knew, was going to drop some leaflets over Vidalia Stadium.
I had no idea where this is going.
So he drops them. A big wind comes up and takes them over the levee. So he has to go round them all up and bring them back.
Oh, my goodness. He tried.
Yeah.
I guess the flyovers they've gotten the flyovers a little bit better these days than back then.
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, I mean, there's been so many great games. I tell you, another team that was from back in the 80s is Block High School when they had Dexter Butcher, best high school football player I've watched.
Really?
He was amazing.
What did he play?
Played running back and cornerback, and he was dynamic at both. He was going to go to LSU, was a Prop 48.
Okay.
So he ended up going to Grambling. He got kind of in a political deal where the kid ahead of him, who was really good, got more playing time, but Dexter was something else. They had Sean Fagan, who went to Tulane. He was the other running back. Emilio Tessier was the head coach.
Okay.
You talk about somebody who can tell stories just as good as Deep Fairclough. He was telling me one year that he coached at Live Oak, Denham Springs.
Mm-hmm.
and they were playing their rival. He said, so I got the team in the classroom, and I had one of my best motivational speeches ever. Then I started playing the theme to Patton. So I got through, and I said, all right, let's go get them. Kids went running down the hall, and one of his coaches looked at him and said, Coach, did we unlock that padlock on the door? And then they heard, he said, I walked out there and all my kids are under the goalpost picking glass out of their arms. But we did win.
He had them motivated, all right.
They went down, I actually rode down with them to West St. John when they played down there. And that was my first experience at West St. John.
Yeah, that's something.
It is.
Yeah.
I walked up the steps to the press box, and there's liquor bottles everywhere.
Yeah.
And the train would come by. And you had to stop the game when the train came by because the people were just going crazy.
Well, Coach Fair, we had Coach Faircloth in here about a year ago or so, and one of the things that he talked about, one of his memories was the Vidalia West St. John game.
Absolutely.
He was saying that they had Tyson Jackson, who ended up being, I think, the number 3 pick in the draft, in the NFL draft. They had several players that went
Quinn
to LSU.
Johnson played at LSU in the pros.
Yeah, I think they ended up having 6 or 7 D1 players on that
Patrick
team.
Jackson went to Louisiana Tech, running back.
Good players, yeah.
But that year, Ronnie, this was just when Sterlington was starting to get good. They were in the other bracket.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe Vidalia would have beat Sterlington. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have beat West St. John in the Dome, but at least it would have gotten D in the Dome, which I'd have loved to have seen that.
Yeah. Yeah, they gave him a pretty good game, considering,
It started out good, but after a while, Tony Hawkins was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. He made everybody around him better, just the way he played.
Yeah.
They were down 20. He was walking up and down that side. Let's go.
Yeah.
And just.
I don't know Tony, but Coach had a lot of praise for Tony.
Yeah.
And
great leader.
He's one of the greatest athletes that he ever.
Absolutely.
One of the greatest football players that he ever.
I agree 100%. And of course, you had the Hoff powers there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Johnny Lee, I know he told you some Johnny Lee stories.
We're gonna. One of the things is I'm gonna get Jarrett and Josh and Johnny Lee together. But
that would be great.
But I'm gonna have to probably do the what's the little thing where you beep it out. We have to do some editing.
I know Dee told you about the a meet. I always had this trouble. It's a meet in Louisiana and a mitt in Mississippi. So anyway,
okay. Yeah.
They played a game down in a mitt. He told you about Johnny Lee getting tossed.
I don't know if this
and going to the school bus and
just laying on the horn.
Here's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. He got thrown out one reason, and Mitt had a runner on first. There was a fly ball deep. And the kid ran to second, went to third, and the guy caught it.
Uh-huh.
The kid ran across by the pitcher's mound back to first base, and they didn't call him out. And Johnny Lee's like, well, you have got to be kidding me. Well, he had a bridge for his teeth about that time. It came out. He was yelling so loud. The umpire caught it. And there was some fan in the stands going, way to spit your gum out at him, Johnny Lee. So he goes to the bus, and he's so mad. And then he finds some electrical tape around the horn. And it was like a continuous beep until it starts going.
Until the battery goes.
He says, oh no. So they
had to jump off
to get out of there.
Oh,
but what a great coach he was too.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Vidalia baseball program was.
Yeah. So was Johnny Lee shifting gears a little bit to the baseball side of things? Was Johnny Lee the first baseball coach at Vidalia?
Well, they had it years ago, but he started it back up in '79.
Okay, so they had it, and then it went away, and then he came. Okay,
right. And they won state with Josh.
Yeah, yep.
And that was in Lafayette. They beat Kinder, and Josh. This was another amazing performance.
Mm-hmm.
Kinder got the first runner on third, no outs, and Josh just like willed his way, struck out the next guy, made the next guy pop up, got the third guy. Yeah. Then the next inning, went extra innings, Vidalia scored runs and won.
Yeah, and I think Vidalia was the only public school in that Final Four.
That was usually the case, yes.
Yeah.
Episcopal and, exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the what are some of the better baseball teams that you saw around?
Oh, well, South Natchez.
Some of the years. And
right. South Natchez had a great program. Buddy Wade, man,
Hmm.
you talk about another great storyteller and a great guy. I could sit around all day just listening to his stories. And he was so dry. And then when you had Gil Morris with him, I was double trouble. Gil's my buddy. We picked at each other every time, all the time. And everybody's like, do y'all just not like each other? I said, no, we are great friends. But we just like picking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, they had a great program as well. Of course, Mitch Ashmore at Huntington.
Yeah.
He won a state championship. Todd Ainsworth pitched against Tunica, a perfect game. And
did he?
One of the state final games.
Wow.
Yeah. So he had some great teams there. Of course, went to Trinity one state.
He pitched a perfect game in the
state finals.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was I don't know how many long ago. He ended up later bowling a 300.
Todd did?
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, who can say they pitched a perfect game and rolled a 300?
Yeah, not me. Yeah, so that was some of the good teams. Cathedral, it seems like, had some of the good good ball teams over the years
absolutely.
too.
One state sure did up, and they went everywhere.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing about Cathedral is you just had the same family names coming in and replacing the other ones. And
what about some of the basketball teams that you covered every year?
Well, that would be North Natchez, Mike Martin at South Natchez. Mike, and at Natchez High. Mike was coaching at South Natchez, had Vernell Singleton, and I'll tell you about a story about that. Because Vernell Singleton and Sean Griggs at Faraday were on the LSU team.
Yeah.
Dale Brown said, well, look, we'll play an exhibition game at your gym, Mike. Mike and Dale were real good friends. He did all his camps. So Shaquille was on that team.
Mm-hmm.
And he came down once and dunked it. And I looked over at Mike, and he's like, I don't have a backup rim. Came down and was limping, and I'm like, oh, please don't. But I saw Russell Johnson. He's probably the best athlete I've ever seen at North Natchez. I mean, he was a dynamite football player, basketball player. He went to USM. Baseball, he could have played anywhere.
Yeah.
They played LSU. So I went to that game in Baton Rouge, and LSU had Shaq, they had Vernell, Chris Jackson, and Stanley Roberts. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember those teams, yeah.
He would have been in shape, but oh my goodness. They walked down on the floor, and I'm like, my goodness.
I still think about some of those, like, how did they not win?
Exactly.
I mean, they had some talent.
They did.
They did. Yeah. Stanley Roberts, I believe, played in the league for a little bit.
He did.
Yeah.
He sure did.
Yeah.
Just was so out of shape, but.
I mean, that 2 7-footers.
Right, exactly. And Chris Jackson. I actually saw Chris Jackson when he was at Gulfport. They played North Natchez and Jackson in the Big 8 tournament. So I got to see him in high school, and then I was going, oh my goodness, this guy is unbelievable.
Yeah. I was actually down at an LSU basketball function. One of my good friends' dads, who's also a good friend of mine, Mr. Johnny Succi, and he got me in. I don't even know what it was called or whatever, but I end up at the table, and I'm eating dinner with Chris Jackson. He changed his name every year. But we talked for a while, and he was telling me some stories, and
that's awesome.
He said he's coaching now at a community college or something, or junior college, and I said, you still got it in you? And he said, well, he said, my best player not too long ago was talking some noise in front of everybody. And he said, and I schooled him in front of the whole team. And he said, I still got it. Don't ever think you're going to come in here.
That's awesome.
And this is probably, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. So
that's awesome. But, Steve Buckley coached at South Natchez and played at South Natchez.
Okay.
Gerald Buckley's son.
Okay.
He was a good friend. When he went to USM, I can tell you a story that we would have our own college teams to call.
Okay.
Cade had State and Ole Miss, and I had USM and LSU. So I would call. First, it was Jim Carmody, who recently passed away, but boy, he was difficult to work with.
Yeah.
You had to have an appointment. It was, and was hard to talk to.
Yeah.
So when Charlie Hallman came in after him, I was like, oh man, this guy you could call anytime. He'd call me back anytime.
Yeah.
Great guy. Of course, he went to LSU and that didn't work out.
Yeah.
He brought Steve with him. But Steve coached Stetson Bennett at Georgia.
Okay.
2 years at Jones Junior College. So that's kind of cool.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So is he over at Jones? Is that where
he's still at Jones? Yeah.
So that's where Stetson came to, was Jones?
Right. And then he went to Georgia, back to Georgia.
I didn't realize that. Everybody kept saying junior college, but I didn't realize it was
Jones
Mississippi.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huh. Tell me, tell me something. Tell me something interesting about my old buddy, Coach Faircloth from over the years. What was he like to cover?
The stories. He keeps that. We got to write that book. We got to write that book. I said, I know. I got plenty of material.
It needs to be done
from the bus trips to. I'll tell you one funny story. When he came back to coach, this is when he got out of it because of cancer.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But he came back as head coach one year when they were in a bind. And Rob Faircloth, his nephew, was his assistant coach, defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So they were beating somebody pretty big, and me and Dee were just sitting there talking, and he looked down there once, and he looked at Rob and because Rob, he didn't call what he wanted. So I talked to Dee the next day. He said, yeah, I got on to Rob, and Rob said, well, I was sitting there trying to signal to you, but you and Joey were talking about the glory days. And Dee was just cracking up telling that story. And I tell you, Rob's another D.
Is he?
He studies film. He's at Gina now, their defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's going to, but yeah, some great stories with D.
Me and him hit it off my freshman year. And you talk about picking, we've been back and forth. I mean, he won a lot more than I won.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought I was funny, but everybody always ended up laughing at his jokes more than they laughed at mine. And the funniest thing was, I thought it was all over, and I was graduating and everything. We was having graduation practice, and I mean, I wasn't even thinking about it. We got 100 people out there, and Mr. Duck,
Howard Duck,
Mr. Duck, gets on the podium and he said, "Ronnie, you out here?" And all I could think was, man, I didn't graduate. Golly. Like, they could have told me this. They didn't have to do this in front of everybody, because my grades were not very good. And I said, oh, man, he's going to tell me in front of everybody. And he goes, and he pulled out a clothes hanger with two toilet paper things on the end. And it said, Coach Faircloth said you left your weights in his gym. And everybody started laughing, and my buddies still to this day. And every time I see Coach Faircloth, you still got your weights? I'm like, man, you got me on the way out.
Yeah, every time I think about it, it's always when something would happen. Jeez. The most bizarre game.
What a guy. What a guy.
Vidalia Opelousas Catholic in the playoffs was one of the most bizarre games I've watched. Opelousas Catholic was winning, I think it was by 1 point. Had it on their own 20. There was like a minute left. All they had to do was run out the clock. Well, they got to delay a game. Then, for some reason, the coach called a timeout. Third down, they had another penalty or something happened that it would stop the clock. So they had to punt with like 15 seconds left. They go back to punt. They're only about the 20. One of the kids from Vidalia pushed their blocking back into the kick. The ball hit his blocker and went backwards, and Vidalia got it on about the 9. Joe Ray Hooker, who probably hadn't kicked a field goal his whole career, comes out there and hits the worst-looking field goal, and it just drops over.
Oh, man.
That was one of the wildest
things. They won it.
They won. Got beat by Notre Dame the next week, but, yeah, that was crazy.
Oh, man, yeah. That's hilarious. So let's talk about a little bit about, we've talked about some of the teams and everything. Let's go to female athletes, overall athletes. Who are some of the Who are some of the best female, whether it be basketball, softball, or whatever that stand out to you that you've covered over the years?
Monique Jones at Faraday was a heck of a basketball player. She actually played for Kim Mulkey at Baylor for a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Janice Davis, BJ.
Okay.
Track. At 8 years old, she was winning state and national meets.
Yeah.
And I went to Stanford, and just a whiz too. She of course coached by Doc Woods, Henry Doc Woods.
And where did she go to school here?
She went to North Natchez.
North Natchez, okay.
Yeah. Because Doc Woods was her coach.
Okay.
And of course, he won several titles at North Natchez. Doc could run a track meet too.
Yeah.
You know how hard those things are to keep in line?
I can
only
imagine, yeah.
And every time I'd walk up there, he'd see me and look at me. We be running. He was a character. But gosh, there's you had all the softball girls at Vidalia that won state. Miranda Doty, J.C. DeWeese. Who was the other ones? Heather Miller. And I knew I was going to forget somebody, but there's been some good ones there. I'll think of the other day.
Yeah.
But they were good.
Yeah.
Of course, you had softball at ACCS. Leanne Davis was really good, and they had some good ones there.
Yeah. Huh. So let's shift over to basketball. Who were some of the best men basketball players that you can remember covering?
Of course, Sean Griggs and Sean Davis at Faraday when they won state.
Yeah.
Sean
Griggs, what I remember about him was he, even at LSU, he was really good at defense, and I think he
still holds the record for steals.
I was about to say, I think he had the record for steals,
right.
if I'm not mistaken. Right. Yeah. So,
of course, Sean Davis is now the Faraday boys coach.
Okay, no, I didn't realize. Okay, so
and he's doing a great job.
So they were two of the better ones that you remember.
Yeah, Vernell Singleton has been some good ones. Robin Harris at North Natchez, Herman Carroll, and Kelvin Knight helped North Natchez win. I'll tell you a story there about those two also. And of course, 1988 was the last year before consolidation.
Okay.
So before that season, I said, well, if anybody goes through the regular season unbeaten, I'll get the Boz haircut. Brian Bosworth had the flat head and the colored.
Yeah.
North Natchez does. So Kelvin and Herman were both there when Jason Nix gave me the Boz. And Robert Smith, one of my favorite coaches as well, was there.
Uh-huh.
And this ended up being a month before I got married. So, Kathy doesn't bring the wedding book out much.
Oh, man, that's funny. At least the Boz haircut was an option.
I'll tell you another story about the Boz. Of course, we had the two best referees, college referees from Natchez. Of course, Al Granning, super guy, cream of the crop with the SEC, and Andy Presgrove. He did independent ball. Well, one year, which year it was, but Oklahoma played Miami. Oklahoma was number 1, Miami was number 2, and it was at Miami, and Presgrove got that game.
Oh,
so
that's a big time, yeah.
Boz was on Oklahoma, and you know Miami's track record.
Yeah.
So Andy said, you know what? I went out there. I said, all right, guys. For the game, I'm going to get you all together. I'm not putting up with any of this stuff. And he said, Bosworth looked at him and said, you're going to have a lot of trouble out of me.
just want you to know.
Exactly. I tell you, well, of course, I can't leave basketball out without Torrey Dixon, Gary Stewart. State.
Yeah.
And Lewis Davis, boy, he was good at North Natchez.
Yeah. Who were that Vidalia team? Is that what you were saying?
2010 won state.
Yeah, they had some pretty good ball players.
For trail time, they did.
Yeah.
And blew, I think it was Richwood out in the finals.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think that maybe when they were all juniors, they went and maybe they lost by a couple of points, and then they came back the next year and finished the job. Yeah. Coach Robert Sanders.
Right. Yeah. They need to name that gym after him.
Yeah. He's my buddy. He's a good guy.
Absolutely.
He's on my board for our Brightest Stars ball, and he's a good guy.
he still does work for the school even though he's retired.
Yeah,
so,
he does.
So I was trying to help somebody out the other night at their ball game, and I saw Robert and said, "Hey, look, can you help me with something?" And he said, "Sure." He said, "But I don't work here anymore." I said, "Yes, you do." But South Natchez, or Natchez High won state under Mike Martin.
Okay.
That was in '95, and that was a difficult time too for Mike because he was named the head coach. Everybody thought Sam West would get it because he was at North Natchez. Sam later became the Alcorn coach. And Mike's, of course, philosophy didn't sit well with a lot of the Natchez folks.
Yeah.
He wanted discipline. He wanted fundamentals. He wanted defense.
Yeah.
And he was so underappreciated because you look at all the Jackson teams they had to play.
Yeah.
How good Gulfport was back then. For them to win state and go to the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
Davis Johnson was another one. He was fun to watch. But, yeah, Mike was underappreciated.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about baseball. Who are some of the guys that you've covered over the years that really
Bobby Bowden and the Hop Powers going on to the pros.
Barry
Bowden, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And let's see who else. Jason Simmons at South Natchez, he was a good one. There's of course Huntington had some good players with that team, but it was just, and a lot of it was coaching too. We've had some great coaches around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you something else too, going back to '88. In '89, of course, North and South Natchez consolidated.
Okay.
I called Robert Morgan at Warren Central, talked to a couple other coaches, and they're like, "Oh, we might as well quit. There's no way we're going to beat that team."
Yeah.
And they went 3-7 the first year. And that was one of the most common questions I was asked. How in the world, why wasn't Natchez High just a power program? And what they don't realize, and I said, South Natchez was like 3-7 the year before. The program had gone down some.
Yeah.
North Natchez had 8 seniors on that team that I had to cut my hair for.
Yeah.
7 of them went to the college level. Kelvin Knight, he got injured. Mississippi State, or he'd have done great. Herman Carroll, he went to the Saints. So, yeah, and Anthony Harris, that was a heck of a team. Of course, you had Tom Williams, the coach, another character. One game they were playing South Natchez. He came out for warm-ups in a yellow suit, or I should say gold, because they were gold and green. Went back in, came out for the game in a green suit.
Making a statement.
That was just the way it was.
Making a fashion statement. Oh, man, that's funny. You were mentioning the Hop Power. We were talking about them a little earlier, and I like baseball. I'm a big LSU fan and everything, and they'll hate on LSU and stuff, but if I don't know, so I'll text Jared or Josh or something, and because they've forgotten more baseball than I'll ever know. And there's been several times that I'll get worked up. Man, why didn't Veterinary do this and that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that didn't make any sense. And then Jared will say, well, if you do this and then this and then, I'm like, all right, never mind.
Well, the story too. I want to mention something else about that. The North and South. That was such a great rivalry too down there at Martin Stadium, and somebody else later. I was talking to one of the coaches who used to coach on that Natchez High team. He said, "I can tell you another problem. The coaches just didn't mesh. You brought North Natchez coaches in with South Natchez coaches."
Yeah,
he said there was a lot of friction, and the kids see that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 And that's, as well as anybody, it's chemistry.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just
and it was 2 different styles you were trying to put together.
Well, I think that's something that we're going to see in college sports now. I think you saw it at Texas A&M this past year where you load up a bunch of talent, but that doesn't mean anything if there's no chemistry.
Exactly.
I think with these NIL deals, like you might have all these guys that are talented, but it's got to be a team will beat you.
Exactly.
A good team will beat you.
Yeah. Jason Wisner, he was another great athlete and a power lifter. He set records all over. When he came out for football, they had to special order a helmet for him. He was that big.
He's a big boy. I'm guessing he's on the line.
And that brings up another crazy story. It's me and Kevin Cooper and Brian Hawkins went to Oxford for the state Ole Miss game because we had a lot of local kids playing. And we flew the Democrat plane up there, and he dropped us off and had to go to Alabama. So this fog starts coming in during the game. I'm like, wow, this is weird. So I go down to the locker room to talk to the players after the game. I come back up in the press box, and Kevin looks at me. He couldn't fly back in. And we're like, what? So we walked around that whole campus looking for somebody we might know going back to Natchez. But Brian's dad lived in Memphis. So he was able to come down and get us, take us to Memphis, and we were able to fly out of there. But it was like, we got to Vicksburg, and that plane was like, and it was terrible storm.
Yeah.
And scared as I've been.
Yeah.
And I was glad when those wheels hit the ground.
Yeah, I might have stayed in Memphis a day or two. Just
You're right.
Yeah. So I guess lastly, you know, and you've already mentioned some of these, but as far as the sports part of it goes and everything, you know, football. Who are some of the best that you just remember covering over the years?
Oh, wow.
Who really stand out?
And you know, I get in arguments all the time of who is the best player. Come on. Of course, Keith Woodside, Eddie Ray Jackson at Vidalia, Tony Hawkins. That was just a great team, the Henson brothers.
So was Tony? Would you put him up there with those guys?
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, Faraday had Kerwin Cook went to Tulane, was one of their top receivers.
Yeah,
and of course
he played at Faraday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and gosh, and Natchez High, you had some great ones. Clarence Parker, Marco Minor on that team that went to the semifinals. T.C. Love was another good one.
Yeah.
Robert Raines, I wish he would have stayed at Natchez High. He knew offense, and he had James Woodard as his defensive coach. Those two, you talk about being chemistry.
Yeah.
They meshed, and it showed on the team.
Yeah.
Of course, AC's had some great kids as well. And Bobby Marks did such a great job.
Yeah. What about
I got to mention Lee Falkenhander at Trinity.
Yeah,
they won state.
Yeah, buddy of mine.
No, absolutely, he was a heck of an athlete.
Yeah, yeah. I think he played some ball up at Ole Miss. Didn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Lee's he's surprisingly tall.
Yeah.
When you stand beside him, you're like, I didn't realize you were this tall until I get beside you. You know? But
of course, Casey Young was it.
Yeah.
And David King was a great athlete at AC.
Yeah. That was all that. Well, Lee was at Trinity, right?
Yes, yes.
Casey and David and all them.
They were at AC.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And of course, Terry Moffitt, Terry Dillon was a heck of an athlete. He was a big reason they won state.
Yeah. What about Ward? Did you cover?
I did. That surprised me. I mean, that's hard.
Yeah.
That was all hard for him to make the Alabama team.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he just didn't have the size you probably need, but he just played hard and worked at it. Great work ethic and just
hard worker.
He was. He was.
To me,
and would be willing to play anywhere. You know, that kind of kid.
Yeah. To me, I've always said, you know, if I'd rather be known as that than somebody who was super talented, who it was easy for. You know.
Well, Ronnie, how many times have we said, if that kid's heart was in that kid's body, it'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, I'd rather be that guy.
Yeah.
I'd rather be the overachiever.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I see some of these contracts these days. I might just rather be the talented guy.
I got to mention Penny Moak as well at Huntington. What a great job. It's a great player, too.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a running gag with us now. After one game they lost, they shouldn't have lost. One of the kids said, after they all emptied out, hey, you got to come here and look at this. Walked in the dressing room and the clipboard was sticking up out of the ceiling. She was that mad. Exactly. Of course, Michael McAnally was the basketball and baseball coach. And now he's won state titles 2 straight years for Jackson Prep girls.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'll tell you a funny story about him. It was a baseball game. He wasn't coaching then. He was doing the PA. So
this is Huntington we're talking about?
Just at Huntington. Okay. It was me and Walter Catchings, whose son Walt at Trinity. It was Huntington versus Trinity. So me, Walt, and
Good guys.
Michael are talking, and just Michael loved James Taylor. So we're sitting there talking, and all of a sudden, here comes Steamroller song over the PA. So Walt looks at Michael and says, "Is that the live version?" And Michael goes, "Yeah. You might want to go cut that off," because at the end of it, James goes, "I'm a steamroller." I've never seen anybody climb stairs faster than Michael did that day.
Did he make it?
He made it.
You're going to leave me hanging. Oh, goodness. So before we shift gears a little bit back to you, are there any other teams or players or anything like that you?
Hundreds.
Yeah.
It's been fun. I mean,
that's what I was going to ask you. So let me ask you that. What, looking back over, go back to your days at Cathedral, covering your first story, covering Coach Beasley. If you look back from now to then, what would you think has been your favorite part of this journey that you've been on?
Yeah, it's the kids and the coaches, just following them, and
it's those relationships.
Absolutely. Just pick up the phone anytime and talk forever with some of these guys.
Yeah.
Now, another interesting part, I did December 1999. I came up with the idea. You know what? It'd be fun to do who is the best athlete for the century, and I did a little poll. You can email me, you can call me. I wish I had social media back then.
Yeah.
But Tony Byrne won by a landslide in Natchez.
Did he?
And I had people calling me up. Look, Tony was so nice. I went to school one year. He helped me with my books. Tony kept running for mayor, made it.
We had Mr. Tony in here too. He's a great guy.
Joey Porter was second.
Okay.
You know that Joey Porter, back in '73, pitched 80 scoreless innings, and that's still a record today in high school.
Wow, that's a state record?
No, national record.
A national record?
National record.
What school was this? This was
South Natchez.
South Natchez.
And he was a quarterback. They ran the box with Ed Reed, another great coach. And I'll never forget the story somebody told me once. Man, he had some guys at Bubba Griffey. And, so many good ones. Dean, can't think of Dean's last name now. They ran a play once where they do, and he threw a long pass to somebody wide open, caught it for a touchdown, but the referee had whistled it dead.
Oh, man.
Because he couldn't keep up with it. Alan Brown and Joe Fortunato, man, I got to mention them.
Yeah.
Two great guys.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story about that. Joe Fortunato.
Those were great. Those are great men. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Joe Fortunato, I would go to his place a lot just for the football foundation and talk stuff. I went in there one year to talk to him and Nolan Big Lane, and Doug Atkins was sitting in his room talking to him. Played at the Saints and with Tennessee. They were good friends.
Yeah.
I went to Alan Brown's place on the river there one year and was talking, and he said, "Yeah, last week Gail Sayers was in here trying to sell me a copy." I went, "What?" Gail Sayers was here. You didn't go. Come on. It's nothing to him, you know.
Yeah, trying to sell me a copier. Oh man, that's hilarious. Yeah.
You know, in 1990, one of the last things I had to do with the Democrat, Y2K. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember that? Everybody was freaking out that the computers would go crazy when it hit 2000.
Everybody thought the world was going to end. Yeah.
And so the whole staff had to go walk around at midnight around Natchez to get people's opinions and see if anything happened.
That's funny.
But I got to the Sentinel. I learned more in 2 months under Sam Hanna than I did ever before.
Yeah.
He was amazing. And he typed on a manual typewriter up to the day he died. He worked till in his 70s at the Sentinel.
And
you would hear that. Gosh, it's been about, we were talking about that the other day. I don't know if it's been about 8-10 years.
Okay.
But you would hear that pecking. And then he'd come in here with his column and his story and hand it to one of us to type into the computer.
Yeah.
He wasn't about to change.
That's awesome. It's yeah. I can only. I'm thinking. I'm kind of processing all of these relationships that all these names that you just rattled off. I mean, you just rattled off probably 100 names.
Well, my wife tells me, you can remember names, teams, records. Then you go to the grocery store and forget the eggs.
You only have so much in there. I mean, there's only so much room to keep the important stuff.
And having Jake along with me has been a big highlight as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick.
I mean, when he was like in the 4th, 5th grade, he was on the sidelines at the baseball, basketball games with me. He loved it.
And this is your son,
right? Yeah. Right. He's in West Monroe now.
Yeah,
and he went to Nichols.
Okay.
And I said, "Well, that's good, son. That's a good journalism school. I'm going there because they've got the Manning Passing Academy." I'm like, okay, at least you're honest. He talked to Eli and Peyton and all those quarterbacks who came through there when he was there.
Yeah.
So that was a blast.
Well, that's better than I went to LSU just because I thought they had a bunch of pretty girls. So at least he had a better plan than I had. Oh goodness!
Of course, Cooper Manning was the funniest.
Yeah.
Of all of them.
Yeah, I've always heard that,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all pretty good. So kind of wrapping this thing up, what would you share with any young kids or high schoolers or anything like that might be thinking about a career in sports journalism, covering sports over in their life or whatever? What
you mind if I tell one more story?
No. Go ahead.
The year of the Bounty Gate. Walter Johnson was drafted by another great player at Fairview High.
Okay.
They were playing North Natchez one year, and he picked up a fumble by Nathaniel and ran it for a touchdown. But, of course, he went to Tech. Was drafted by the Houston Oilers. Ended up with the Saints. But when he was with the Oilers, Jerry Glanville said, no, he didn't say
that. He probably said that was a horn going down the street in case you can't hear. But that's
so Jerry.
He probably said that.
Yeah, knowing Jerry Glanville, you're right. So he told Walter, "I want you to hit Morton Anderson right after he kicks off," which he did.
Yeah.
And Walter's like, back then you did that, or somebody was right behind you taking your place.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The coach said. So they had Bounty Gate. When Walter went to New Orleans, Morton Anderson told the Times-Picayune that Walter told him Glanville gave him $1,000 to do that. I talked to Walter. He said, no, that didn't happen. Yeah. He said, I did hit him. I mean, I was told to hit him.
Yeah.
Football's physical. If my mama had pads on, I'd hit her.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Times-Picayune picked up the story, ran with it. I got a call from CNN. Cortland Sager called me. Hey, can you arrange for us to talk to Walter? I said, well, I'll tell you, it's probably not going to happen, but I'll try.
Yeah.
So I got a hold of Walter. No, I'm not going to do it. I said, okay. I didn't think you would, but he said, if you want to talk for me, that's fine. So I talked to Cortland. I got back in touch with Cortland and said, look, he don't want to do it. He told me I could talk if that's what y'all want. Oh, she said, okay, we'll be down there this date. So they arrived that day. It's 3 of them. And so hey, can we ride by Walter's house just to see if he might be there? And I said, okay. Thought that was kind of, but anyway,
yeah.
I went by his apartment. He was gone fishing. I'm like, thank you. And so we set up the interview. First, we was going to do it in the press room, which we'd stopped using the press because it was being printed in Bastrop at that time. But they loved it, but the acoustics and the lighting wasn't good. I said, well, we can go to the football field. Well, it was real windy that day. That didn't work. So they finally said, well, look, let's just do it across the street from the Sentinel. I said, okay. So they asked me questions, asked me my opinions, and I'm answering it. And the guy doing the camera goes, wait, you just had somebody on a bike go behind you. Ask the question again. You're going to have to answer the question again. I said, okay. Oh, wait, sunglasses. I said, take them off. Well, they were transition. I said, okay, just take your glasses off. Okay. Ask the same question again. Another time. All right. Well, wait a minute. You just not your glare on your there's a glare. You need to turn this way. So I'm thinking, oh, you just want me to answer this thing the way you want to hear it.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at. And I made sure I answered it the same way every time.
Yeah.
Walter said he didn't do it. I believe him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Didn't give them the story they wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it runs the next week, and I think I was on there for like 10 seconds. The rest of it was Morton Anderson, and I called Walter up and said, "You made the right decision. They just wanted to make you look bad."
Yeah. 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 Unfortunate, man. So he said he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. No.
Yeah. It's no telling how many of these stories get drummed up over the years.
Exactly.
And how these legends
that opened
grow.
my eyes a lot to it.
How the legends grow. And
Yeah.
Right.
You're just trying to make this something to watch.
Yeah. That's
never mind the truth.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's one of the things that I've always that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about you guys. I feel like that you are a true community newspaper, and you have to report what you have to report. Mm-hmm. But you're not out there trying to sensationalize everything, and you guys focus on a lot of the positive stories and highlighting what's going, highlighting our kids and stuff like that. So I've always appreciated that.
One other story for you.
Uh-huh.
Daryl Day was coaching at Nichols.
Uh-huh.
Daryl's from here, and his dad was a great player at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, they were going to play ULM in Monroe. I said, Daryl, can I come in there at halftime? And he was like, ooh. I said, okay, but don't you dare to let anybody else know I let you in here. So it was really neat. It's halftime. I walked in, and like the first 5 minutes, all the guys are just kind of chilling and just getting relaxed and real laid back. I'm like, wow. And then the coaches come in, and each linebackers get with the linebacker coach, all that.
Yeah.
And then at the last 5 minutes is Daryl getting up and getting them revved up for the second half. They played it. ULM almost beat them, which would have been the first time in Nichols history.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. 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 Those guys were some, on some of the LSU teams and stuff that, Mr. Day?
Yeah, Donnie Day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Manson Nelson, Max Fuller, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was fun watching him getting inducted in the Hall of Fame.
There's a lot of talent that's come from around here over the years.
And Red Robinson.
Yeah.
Coaching in the 50s.
Uh-huh.
What they did, 54 straight games without a loss. I told somebody, man, I'd love to have seen those games back then. Of course, I wouldn't be here now, but.
What school was that?
That's at Faraday.
Faraday?
That's when they had that whole crew, and he was way ahead of his game. He was scouting when nobody else was scouting. They played Cathedral once, pouring down rain. Halftime, he had his kids' other uniforms, so they had put on new uniforms for the second half. And here come Cathedral out there just drenched.
Yeah.
But he was way ahead of the game.
So Faraday's always had a good program.
Yes.
Yeah, they've always been. Yeah.
Jehu Brabham, he's from Clinton, and he's a preacher in Clinton. He was a great player at Mississippi College, broke records there. So, there's just so much.
Yeah, Mr. Tony Byrne was in here, and we had some pictures on his interview. We put some pictures up with him playing ball and basketball and football and all of that.
Absolutely,
and a lot of great players from around here, and a lot of good people too.
It is, and that's another thing. Yeah, it's class people.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you say to anybody that wants to, cover this, cover sports? What would you say to them?
Find something else.
No,
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
it's got to take a lot of time, but it's something you got to be passionate about.
You're not going to get rich off of it.
Yeah.
But I would tell them, gosh, just be yourself. People appreciate that, And I had one editor tell me once back at the Democrat, somebody tells you something off the record, say you don't want to hear it then. Well, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Because they can tell me something off the record and I can keep it to myself, they're going to trust me more.
Yeah.
And you know why they're telling you something off the record? Because they want you to find out about it another way and put it out there.
Yeah.
But
Anonymous.
Yeah, find another source. Yeah. But just respect the game and respect the people you're doing with. And it can be difficult talking or doing interviews, especially young kids.
Yeah.
You may have to pry stuff out of them, and it's like, there's been many a days. Yeah, I don't know. Nah. Yeah. You just have to keep. Best thing to do is when you sit down for like that is just to talk a little bit for 10 minutes, let them get relaxed. And then if they say, yeah, well, why? What was your best points? Or what was the best part of your game? I don't know. Well, what do you remember from it? Well, why? Why was that special? Well, just keep
prying.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And just to kind of add on from the outside looking in, I would say, you said kind of respect the people, but don't, especially in a local place, don't always be on the attack. They're human beings.
Exactly.
It's a
These
game.
are kids.
They're kids.
Still kids.
Yeah. So, I guess wrapping up, because I know you got somewhere to be in a little while. You got somewhere to go cover, I believe. We moved our interview up so you could go. You could go cover something, I believe. So, but what do you think the future holds for you?
I'd really like to be doing this for 5 more years, good Lord willing. And I mean, it's not real stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, papers now, it's so different, Ronnie. I mean, Gannett just ruined it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they've gotten rid of a lot of good people taking over at Alexandria and Monroe. And I hate it. But, I mean, you put stuff online now. It's not like you don't have the deadlines you used to. So it's never been real stressful for me over there. I mean, 2 days before you put the paper out, it can get crazy.
Yeah.
I hope to be doing this for at least for 5 more years at most.
I think you guys will
I'm still getting the calls from Medicare.
Yeah.
Well, they're supposed to be Medicare.
Who knows? Just don't give them your social.
That's right.
Oh, goodness.
Hey, one of them called me. Mr. Martin, how old are you? I said, I'm 89. Click. I had one call me once, and I looked at my phone and said, hello? Yeah, we're wanting to know you're up for Medicare. I said, did you know that you just called me from my number? It was my number.
I've had that
and then
happen too.
Click.
I've had that happen too, Lord. I don't know how that happens. I'm like, that's how I know it's got to be a scam if they're calling me from my own number. Oh, goodness. Well, man, I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, brother. It's my pleasure. I hope I didn't leave too many people out.
No, and they'll understand if you did. I definitely appreciate you taking a little time. I know you're busy. We're glad to have you guys as partners for our show.
Oh, we're thrilled about it.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everybody for watching this. I know you guys, if you watched it, I know you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, I hope so.
I want to say thank you to all of our awesome partners, including the Concordia Sentinel now, for helping us make these interviews possible as we try to continue to shine the spotlight on champions and spread positivity. Just want to thank you to everybody out there. God bless everybody. And as always, have a champion day.
Hey, Miss Lou, come visit us, Tom and Wright Granning at Go Martin on the Go Deli.
Go Martin has clean restrooms, community coffee, an awesome beer cave, and a great selection of anything you may need.
Located at the corner of Highland Boulevard and Highway 61 South in Natchez.
Also stop by Wardo's Po' Boys at 309 North Broadway on the beautiful Natchez Bluff,
where everyone is family.
Hey y'all, it's Ronnie and Shannon with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight.
And we want to tell you about our awesome partner, J.E. Hicks Distributing Company, also known as Hicks Chicks.
Hicks Chicks is a local, family-owned food distribution company that has been serving the Miss Lou since 1945. You already know they serve all of your favorite restaurants, but did you know that they are also open to the public?
Hicks Chicks has a variety of food products, including delicious heat and eat options like chicken and dumplings, white bean chicken chili, lasagna, and gumbo. They also carry a wide variety of seafood options like shrimp, crabs, tuna steaks, salmon, and catfish.
And don't forget about their delicious burgers that are already pattied up for you and their amazing dessert options.
So stop by today at 1380 Martin Luther King Jr. Road in Natchez. Hicks Chicks.
Way more than just chicken.
Hey guys, Ronnie Calhoun here with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight. We're out at our awesome partners, Gregg Veterinary Clinic, and we are in the back in the Barkley Pet Hotel and Spa. I'm standing in the Magnolia Bell Suite, which is one of 5 elite boarding suites available to your 4-legged furry friends when you travel this summer. Each suite comes with a private bed, flat screen TV, 24/7 video monitoring, and a sliding door so your pet feels like they're home. They provide one-on-one walking and activities in a fenced-in private backyard. So call Gregg Vet Hospital today and request your pet suite at the Barkley Pet Hotel and Spa. They'll leave the light on for you. Call Gregg Veterinary Hospital today.